Prior, let me say this personal issue, even though I don't like to mention personal issues unless there's a lesson. Prior to me going to prison, one of my da'wah activities was that I was visiting a youth camp, giving them da'wah, the young youth. They had Muslim youth, so I would go every 2 weeks or every week sometimes. Suddenly one day they said, looked at me, no problem, I had no problems, no issues. You have no clearance to come in here no more. This was right around 2001. The scrutiny to be a chaplain in a youth prison is very small. Nearly anyone can go. The investigations to you and background checks are very small, very limited. So they told me you have no clearance. Approximately less than a year after that, I myself, I was an inmate in a federal prison. Being a chaplain or teaching in a federal prison requires such high scrutiny and going through phases and high confidence of the non-Muslims in you. In order to be a chaplain for a federal prison and even a state, they strip you of your faith. Let me put it too clear. Let me talk clear. In fact, wallahi, the Jewish and Christian chaplains, most of the time, were more merciful to Muslim inmates than the Muslim chaplains were to the Muslims. So those granted access to prison, those chaplains, know that they are, those most so-called Muslims, know that they are more anti-Muslim than the non-Muslims. Their harm to Muslim inmates is beyond that which one can imagine. What can I describe? The torture the non-Muslims back away from, many of the Muslim chaplains take it upon themselves to do in federal prisons. I always wanted to go teach in youth prisons, state prisons, and federal prisons. I wasn't given access to the smallest one, where you need a little bit of clearance to teach. But imagine the work of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't have clearance to teach in a youth prison, which requires a little bit of scrutiny and the background check. But now, suddenly, Allah snatches me from the free world and puts me among federal inmates to teach them day and night. Imagine that. Not a single prison they took me, alhamdulillah, except that I taught a group of Muslims the foundation of their belief, the Quran, the Sunnah. Many who memorized the entire Quran. I say many. Inshallah, maybe in the future we'll talk about details of stuff like that. Those who didn't speak word of Arabic, suddenly within less than a year, they'd have the Quran memorized and speak Arabic. Because we were teaching and learning day and night. We went through the books of Tawheed from beginning to end. Classical style, not this couple-day trailer that they do here and think they're shuyukh. The books of Sirah, Fiqh, Arabic. Every minute, bihamdillah, was spent teaching and learning. Or in the sake of Allah, or getting our rest. Not sporadic teaching. This wasn't sporadic teaching, but the old systematic classical style of teaching, alhamdulillah. Then they see the effect of the da'wah. Those in charge see the effect of the da'wah in their prison. So they want to harm and torture me in a way they deem is torturous. So they move me from one prison to another. As difficult as it is being moved from one prison to another, where you go for days in shackles and foot shackles and cuffs, and your hands to your stomach, and you're driving in a bus, then in an airplane for days and days and days, and your family, you don't know nothing about your family, you don't know what's going on in the outside world. You ask, why, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are you doing this? But you don't ask that as a true believer. All I was doing was teaching Quran. Should I say, why, Ya Allah, you're doing this, when all I was doing is teaching Quran? My point of this is sometimes you don't know the wisdom, so don't ask such questions. Put your reliance on Allah. There's hardships there, but you don't know the wisdom. Sometimes you know it at that point. Sometimes you'll know it in the future. Sometimes you won't know it until you stand before Allah. The move from prison to prison was even better than putting me in prison, because I got exposed to many other inmates all over the United States, where I couldn't have done it on my own. Repeating the steps over, Quran and Tawheed and Sirah and Fiqh. Again, same curriculum, going over to the point many told me, write us a curriculum so when you leave we can have that curriculum. Some of those who were with me have been blessed and released. They were with me, they were blessed and released. They're on my Facebook and you can ask them. And they'll tell you the situation that used to happen, alhamdulillah. At one point, and let me say this, they took me to a solitary. 9 months I spent in solitary. And the reason is, this man can't teach Islam. One of the worst solitary prisons in the United States. And the reason it was one of the worst is because it wasn't structured to be a solitary prison. It was built in the 1930s, and it's old school prison, and it's a very difficult prison to stay in, let alone in the solitary portion of it. My crime, he can't teach. The one who instigated this and wrote the report about me, wallah, he was a so-called Muslim chaplain. Wallah, the Jewish and Christian chaplains were more sympathetic and apologetic to that situation than that Muslim chaplain who wrote the report himself. He would instigate in torture and say at the end of the day he's a Salafi. Wallahi, the guards who returned from Iraq and Afghanistan, and you know, some of them may harbor personal experience, they want to take it on you, used to tell him to leave me alone. And my father, the non-Muslim chaplains, would refuse to talk to him at times because of what he did to us. This was a chaplain who he himself informed he informed me of the fact that his ex-wife and daughter were students in 2 of my classes, in some of my father's classes, prior to me going to prison. He said, do you know so-and-so and so-and-so? I said, yeah. He said, that's my ex-wife and my daughter. I said, subhanallah. The Muslim chaplain told the authorities I shouldn't teach in that prison. So they placed me in solitary. A Muslim brother was, this is the point of the story. A Muslim brother was placed in solitary a few cells down. He was in prison for not Islamic cause, another kind of cause, another situation, but alhamdulillah, Allah guided him. So he's there, I'm there, and my father was up in the 2nd level. My father, 70-year-old, enduring the hardship of that solitary. The Muslim brother couldn't take the torture. He couldn't take the torture. So one day in the morning, he sliced his wrist in attempted suicide. And the guards go in and save his life, alhamdulillah. Just so you know the hardship, don't say, why did he do this and that. Don't talk about that. Say, may Allah hasten their release, and may Allah guide them, continue to guide them, hasten their release. That cell, the entire cell with the toilet and the sink, is smaller than the size of your queen-size bed. You spend 24 hours most of the time there, maybe 23 hours a day. There's no heat in winter. There's no air conditioning in summer. Approximately 20 inmates or so are held there at one time, everyone in a cell. Let me tell you how hard it is, and just so you know, while I was there in the 9 months, they carried 2 in body bags out of there. That's how difficult it is, 2. And that's held us there approximately 20 to 30. So when the brother threatened suicide, they got scared because they're afraid of lawsuits, and other agencies from the outside come and investigate. And then he told them, I'm not going to stop committing suicide unless you place me with the Sheikh. About me. Panic. We put the Sheikh here so he won't teach. Now you're going to panic and discussion. And the warden and the captain and the lieutenants and the higher-ups have to meet. We can't do this. We put this man in solitary so he won't teach. And now, by force, we're going to place a man threatening suicide if he doesn't get put with him. He said, I'm going on hunger strike. You put me back, I'm going on a hunger strike. They said, we're going to put you in such a... He said, I'm not... You put me with the Sheikh. They finally conceded and placed him in my cell. We sat there, alhamdulillah, for weeks and weeks, making salah, dhikr, learning, teaching. So many never-ending discussions and questions about Islam, all about Islam. Nothing else to talk about, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. The iman in that tight little cell was at an all-time high, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Then, as with many great brothers you meet in prison, we departed our way. Allah eased his situation, and he finally went on that same compound. And I was taken away to further away, higher security prison. Just a few weeks ago, I get a message on my Facebook. And I didn't know who it was in the beginning, but after I asked, it's, alhamdulillah, this brother, he got released. He said, brother, I need your help to strengthen my iman like the days when we were in that tight cell together. He said, those days that you gave me, I had forgotten. I gave him a prayer carpet. He said, that prayer carpet that you gave me, I still cherish and hold on today. I never forget those moments that I spent. It wasn't that he spent it with me, he spent it with Allah, free man, but his sweetest moments, his sweet iman in that cell, were more beloved to him than the freedom in the outside. So you at times don't know the wisdom that Allah places you in predicaments. That's why always be happy to whatever Allah does to you.